And it's things like that that you don't think you could do. And you're like, oh, that seems so hard. It must take a million scientists, 10 million days to do that. But no, it's like you can do that on your own and you can learn that.
Science is for everyone, all backgrounds, all ages, all genders, and all walks of life deserve an education.
RareGangster has a BS in applied mathematics and biomedical engineering. We're going to learn about what those things are, how that journey is, and learn about the inspirational RareGangster herself. Madame, welcome to the show.
I'm honored you asked me. Since I don't work in STEM currently. I'm a full-time Twitch streamer right now, so I don't get to talk about this stuff much, especially like to my chat. I feel like it probably bores them. So I was really excited and honored when you asked me. I get to talk about a part of my past that I usually hide.
It is an honor and a privilege for us to have you on. Actually, would you mind kind of going into what got you originally interested in the STEM fields? Like, was there a particular, did you always think math was really cool? Did you think that it was animals? Like, did you end up studying the research you were interested in? Just how did that get started, that curiosity?
Well, it's funny you mention it because I did not start out like thinking I was going to get into STEM at all. I always loved video games and I wanted to be a gaming journalist. I wanted to work for Game Informer magazine, which y'all may be familiar with. I had it in my head that my Southern California born and raised, sun-kissed, supple skin was going to survive in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where their headquarters is. And so that was like my dream as like a little kid, or like, probably middle school, high school-ish. I was always an academic. No, I was always honors class, AP, IB program. I did a lot of volunteering. I never had a problem with math or science. Like I was pretty well-rounded educationally, but like journalism was where my heart was at. But then as many of you all will remember, journalism is a field that has since died. And especially around, that was the 2010s. That was probably when a lot of people were realizing that just that field is downsizing a lot, to the point, and continuously, in my opinion. Anyway, so I was not stupid. I was like, okay, this isn't going to work. I need something that's going to, have sustainability where I'll be able to have a long-term career. And so I went to community college first because I was undecided. But I did start with, I believe it was just a business degree or something. And then I found myself more and more drawn to the math aspect of it. So I went from business to accounting. And then I went to math and engineering, and I couldn't decide. So I was just like, I'm just going to do both. I'm going to do a double BS. I'm going to do a double major. And I went to UC Irvine. I got accepted a full ride scholarship. Yes, full ride scholarship as a woman in STEM. And that was probably how I got started in that. And I fell in love with it. And that was what I wanted to do with the rest of my life until things changed. But I'll let you ask your next question first or comment first.
No, we're going to ask about why things and how things change. But I just want to say, like, how cool already the story is. Like, going from, because there's always this mindset, right, of like where you end up doing your schooling might affect what you can become, and almost it's limiting. Like you're not allowed to go outside of this like regular track that people go down, right? But the opportunity to go to community college and then get a full ride to UC Irvine, like that's immense. And what was that like? Like, what was the experience like?
I was not able to. From a young age, I have been independent, and my parents weren't able to afford to have me go to college. So even community college, I paid for that, and I got scholarships for that from high school. Journalism scholarships, funny enough. But yeah, no, it was huge because it was something I would not be able to do. I don't know how expensive UCs are, but back then when I went, it was well over $25,000 a year, or like a year, and they do a quarter system. So it was really, really expensive. It was not something I would be able to do. And I just felt really blessed and lucky that I was able to do this. And I've worked since I was like 16 years old, nonstop. So I worked, I went to school. I did it all, man. There's a power in youth. I don't know how I did it. I would work, go to school full time. I would date. I would go to the gym every day. I'd cook. I don't know how I did it.
I mean, well, so that's easy how you did it. You're a badass woman in STEM.
Oh, exactly. Thank
right?
you. I was very driven.
And so it's what was in the transition from going to the community college to the undergrad, what was, do you think, kind of the hardest part? And how did you end up deciding those fields? Like the double major kind of makes sense in terms of like the mathematics and the engineering, they're kind of foils of one another. What got you
Mhm.
interested in those? Because sometimes you don't hear, or usually don't hear math, right? It's like math is a scary
No.
thing. What drew you to math?
Um, I was really good at it. I remember specifically, so in community college, which I saw someone in chat said that community college is a smart way to go. I completely agree. I could talk about that forever as far as, community college versus 4 years and stuff. And a lot of like college is placed now because it can be so expensive and like, I don't want to say a scam, but it can be, if you're not going for the right things, it can definitely be a long-term money hole for a lot of people. But anyways, yeah, no, I started doing math classes for my engineering. I think I started with wanting to do engineering first, and I was just doing math classes, and I just realized it just came to me really easy. I've always been a pretty like logical person. I so I don't know. I just really it clicked for me, and I specifically remember being in, well, at the community college it was Calc 3, multivariable calculus, Green's theorem, things like that. And I remember I was the only kid in the class that got an A on like one of the tests. And I was like really, really proud of it. I was like, hee hee hee. Everyone was like, oh, how'd you do it? I was like, so probably the sense of superiority over other people not knowing math. That's probably what did it. um, uh, but yeah, no, I was really drawn to it. So that was probably it for math. And then engineering, I really liked from a young age. I always wanted a purpose driven field. I always wanted to do something where I felt like what I did was going to have an impact. I was really interested, and I still am, in legacy. Um, and so with engineering, I always felt like that was going to be something where I directly improved people's lives. And I was able to kind of be creative with it as well, which is what I was interested in when I was pursuing journalism. I like creative writing. I love reading and things like that. So I felt like engineering gave me a lot of creative outlets with projects I wanted to do, which it definitely did. And then math I just thought was fun. And it was already, they were both on the same track with the colleges. Like I was doing the same classes for them anyways, until you got to like the final upper division level math and engineering. And so I was like, might as well get both.
So you mentioned creativity in biomedical engineering. Could you just define for us, I guess, what is biomedical engineering? Because that seems like a foreign term to a lot of people. And like what is it that you were doing, designing, making, could make? What does that look like?
So that's the thing about biomedical engineering. It is a very like versatile major and like career path. It is so many different things. Like I remember comparing to some of my other friends. Like if you're going to get a major in like organic chemistry, you're going to be taking chem classes, and besides all your general ed stuff. If you're doing physics, you're taking physics classes. When I was doing biomed engineering, you are taking a series in everything. You are taking a chem series, you are taking a physics series, you are taking everything, and you can apply it in so many different ways. So what I would do when I was in college is I would make things like and when I say make, I don't just mean like the mechanical engineering part. I mean conceptually from the ground up. I would design them. I use programs like SolidWorks, LabVIEW, things like this. Like we were doing coding, the circuitry, like design, then the actual designing, like, in SolidWorks and things like that. And then we'd 3D print it. We'd put it all together. We would do the electronics, Raspberry Pi, LabVIEW, whatever. And like from the ground up. And like I said, there's so many different branches, specifically in medicine, that you can take that with. One of the projects I made, I did a lot of heart rate monitors. I remember I made this one machine. I should have brought pictures. I was ill prepared. Measured joint motion, and it would monitor if you were like overextending the rotation of your joints. And so you could like kind of like strap it on, and it would measure it for you and stuff. So yeah, like it's hard to say specifically like, oh, biomedical engineering is this. I feel like it's easier to say with chemistry or physics, kind of. It's a more linear path, whereas biomed engineering is definitely a merging of like so many different disciplines of STEM in order to, be a little unique and create something, hopefully new and hopefully life improving.
When you were making these, was that part of the course, or was that a lab component to the course, or did you also work in a lab that was around this field? Like, it's just really cool. How did that work? Like, how was that curricula or custom design where you can start building all these really cool things?
They would have labs. Yeah, UCI, they would have lots of labs. So you'd have your regular lectures, and then you would also have lab time. And so a lot of lectures would be like learning specific code. So for designing, learning SolidWorks, I have a few certifications in SolidWorks, and then you'd have to actually build it and then 3D print. And there would be a fee where you have to pay for the materials because 3D printing is a little expensive. Yeah, and then in the lab is where there were a lot of the actual like construction would take place. And then in the lectures would be a lot more theory. Mm-hmm.
Did you have a favorite build, or I guess favorite build, maybe most complicated build, and or any struggles in said building and how you overcame them? I know that's a lot of questions thrown at you, but it's just like it's so foreign to me as like a fruit fly geneticist. It's like it almost seems like you're given the tools to have Candyland, right? And you're just like, how can I build something to help someone?
I agree. I think, and this is one of the coolest things about being in STEM is that I feel like a lot of kids are missing these days. It really is that like eliminating of barriers as far as what you can do and create. Like probably one of the most difficult things I had to do is I made from the ground up. It was my idea to have this walker that would fold, for like elderly people, and it was a walker and it would fold and it would have like a chair in it, and it would like automatically like have a chair so that people could sit down whenever they needed to, so they could walk, and if they got tired they could sit down. And I made it out of PVC pipe. I made it out of, oh god, what else? I spray painted it metallic silver because I didn't want actual metals, like expensive, aluminum and stuff, a lot more expensive than PVC pipe, but I wanted it to look legit. I wanted it to look like metal. So I spray painted it like aluminum. And I had, the wheels were really hard to design. I actually designed the wheels and 3D printed them, and 3D printed a lot of the joint parts of it. I 3D printed, and then things like the actual structure I would measure exactly, and I did design them in SolidWorks and stuff, but I wouldn't like make those 3D printed. I would just buy them and kind of like measure them out a little bit more. But that was probably one of the most difficult projects, just because it was like larger in scale than kind of anything I'd done in school before. But what I loved about it is I was like, whoa, I just made a machine. And what I loved about a lot of the stuff is like when you're learning to code and like, and learning little breadboards and circuitry and making how to code certain, lights to turn on and off and stuff, depending on it. When you're making all these things and putting them together, then you're like, whoa, I'm like a mad scientist. Like I'm a crackpot inventor. It's really fun, and it kind of lowers a lot of barriers in your mind for what I feel you will think you'd be capable of. Because I feel like these days a lot of people think that like that stuff is not accessible, like you're not able to do that. I would feel like a lot of people would think I can't make a walker, or like I made this little like project and I did all the circuitry for it, and it was a light show. Basically it was a little shoebox, but you did like a light show, kind of like what you see on Candy Lane during Christmas time. You'll go to a house and they have one of those light shows. That's like the stuff I would do, but I did in like a miniature version. And it's things like that you don't think you could do, and you're like, oh, that seems so hard, it must take 1 million scientists 10 million days to do that. But no, it's like you can do that on your own and you can learn that. So I felt like it makes it more accessible.
If not 10 million days, how long does something like that take?
Oh, not long at all. So like for the light show, or even when I made the walker, it doesn't take too long, and it's having a lot of fun in the process, building and creating something. The coding, once you learn, you get a handle of it, and there's varying degrees. Well, the codes I know, I don't know traditional, like when you think coding, you think like computer coding, Java, C++. I learned MATLAB, math class, Mathematica, LabVIEW, SolidWorks. SolidWorks is more of a design software. LabVIEW is an engineering coding software to do things like what I described with the lights, where you will send responses, create if-then statements, Booleans. So basically, I should probably be more more detailed. So basically you'll code something, you know, wait 5 seconds and then this light will go. And then when this is true, like this will go and things like that. That's how you can like time it accurately. But yeah, it was pretty cool.
So what I'm most mesmerized by is your brain. Okay, and here's what I mean by this. It's incredible how you're able to then puzzle solve, right? Because this isn't just like, I don't know, like biology seems so much more linear, right? Like, yes, there's a question that you're asking, but here's kind of a route towards it. And for you, it's like, here's this question and what I have to come up with a solution for. And you're using MATLAB for coding, you're 3D printing stuff, you're engineering and drawing things out for shapes. Like, what do you feel was your training that led you think this way? Because that is like the gift of puzzle solving right there, and that's like the coolest part of it to me. What do you think that like past experience and or inspiration was, or is that something that was just luckily fostered over the course of a lifetime?
I think reading is a big thing. One of the things I'm most grateful for is learning to critically think about things and learning to actually like want to think and have fun thinking instead of having answers, enjoying learning and the process of it. And I think reading is just a really good way to kind of like learn to think. I did, like honors English and stuff. Obviously, I have like my journalism roots, which taught me to ask like questions with why. So even before I was doing STEM, there's a lot of like, okay, why is this? Like, not just like, oh, I'm looking for an answer on a test, like 2 + 2 = 4, but like, why is the color red for this dress that this character wears in this book? What does it symbolize and things like that? And I feel like from a young age, learning things like that and learning to question things and just think a little more critically led me to be more like not only creative, but also just more curious. I want to know why things are the way they are. I want to know how to do them. I want to know how I can improve certain things. If there is a process for one thing, which this is a lot of, like I was going to go into, before I became a streamer, I was going to go into R&D, research and development. And a lot of times it is when you work at companies like that, it is, okay, we have this process for this thing we do. Let's say we make a product. Let's say we make, I don't know. Let's say we make pens, okay? Like, what is a more efficient way we can make pens? Not always like cost cutting, but sometimes like to save time, to save material. And those are the types of things that you're going to be doing. Like the real engineers do on the job a lot of times is, what can I do to improve a process? Like what sort of angle can I explore that maybe no one else here has explored before? And that's cool. It's not a job for people that want to clock in, clock out. It's not a job where you're just like going to go in and, do 2 + 2 = 4. It is more of a job where it challenges you, which I like that. I think that's really fun. I like being challenged. Oh my goodness.
So I really like that it was like the reading element too, and like building that conceptual framework, because I think that's the hardest part, right? Whenever in any kind of science is that ability to get past the fact memorization steps, right? When you can be like, let me apply everything that I've learned to this particular puzzle. Could you talk to us a little bit about how the math side of things kind of fed into that? Because math is like that too. It's like this, like proof. I never really understood it, but proofs, right? It's like getting to this answer in unique ways. What were...
See, already. That's what I have to explain to people from the beginning that don't know. I mean, you obviously have a STEM background, so you probably had to take a little bit of upper division math, or at least kind of scratch the surface of proofs. But a lot of people think math is arithmetic, and it's not arithmetic. Real math is proofs. Real math is proving, why does math work? Because it's kind of similar to like a lot of things, actually. A lot of times you have to find out why things work, find out the components, and once you know the foundation and the fundamentals, then you can start playing with it, learning more, building new things, like new theories, So for a mathematician, it is a lot of proving. And I thought that was really crazy for me because I was always really good at arithmetic growing up. And a lot of people kind of get steered away from math because they'll grow up thinking it's arithmetic based. And then you get into college and upper division math, and it is not. So what I always use as an example for my community when I'm trying to describe it is math will be not 2 plus 2 equals 4, it'll be why is 4 an even number? And you'll be like, anyone you ask, if you ask a random person, why is 4 an even number? They're going to tell you it just is. It's an even number. 2, 4, 6, 8, and then they don't know how to explain it to you really. Maybe someone will be like, okay, well, if you can divide it by 2, it's an even number. Okay, well, can you prove that for every single number? How do you know? If I pick infinity and I multiply it by 2, how do you know that's going to be an even number? You can't prove that. I mean, you can't just tell me trust you. You have to prove that to me. Prove that to me for all our natural number. In math you'll have sets. So natural numbers, unnatural numbers, irrational, whatever set you want to prove it within that set. And so that's usually the example I use to prove or to tell people kind of what math is like. And there are axioms of truth that we have in mathematics, things that we accept as true, and certain properties of math, transitive property, additive property, and certain things that we hold as true inherently based on them already being proved. And then we use those to prove other things. So we can prove if you take, n, the number, if you put any number in here, it is going to be divisible by 2, because then you do the proof. And it's a lot of writing. People don't realize it's not just, okay, well, I'm showing the work. Here you go. You have an intro. Whenever you're writing a proof, you have an intro. You're like, hey, I'm trying to, it's been a few years, so they might call it like a hypothesis, or your null hypothesis you're trying to disprove or whatever. But, this intro, basically, this is what I'm trying to do. Then you have your work, which is going to be the arithmetic part, where you're doing, okay, 2n equals this. I'm using this property, this property, this property. This equals this according to this property, this axiom. And then you do a conclusion. You have to write. So therefore, by this work that I showed you, all numbers on the natural set of numbers are even, and so that's what real math is like. It is a lot more writing and critical thinking and proving that it has ever been arithmetic. And I think that has been very invaluable to me, because similar to what I was describing with like reading and, and English, like that also helped me learn critical thinking skills, which I think is, really important. And also just learning why things are the way they are, and kind of having that thirst to kind of learn why things are the way they are. Like, why is this number odd? And you can kind of apply that to a lot of things.
I love that example too, because it sounds, like you said, so simple. Like if you went up to anyone, it would just be like, why is that even? Because it is, right? And you're like, well, no.
Yeah.
You have to prove, and it's such a really, really cool example. What were some of the other, like when you went to the higher tier math courses, like you said, it's not just arithmetic. What does one do in those higher level math courses, and what were you finding like really enjoyable and fun that kind of, kept you going, where this is what I wanted to double major in?
A lot of proving the theorems of math that we believe to hold true. A lot of the axioms is what we did, and certain theorems that we know now to be true, just proving them, and why they work. If I were to continue to pursue math, I feel like I would have gone the path of making my own theorems, or, because that's kind of the goal when you're a mathematician. I don't know any like practical mathematician applications outside of statistics, accounting, things like that. I'm trying to think of other jobs, but a lot of it, when people are getting their PhDs or they're like pursuing, a further education in math, it is about like, okay, what do I want to prove that's true? Like what, based on my knowledge, like what do I want to tackle myself and try to learn? Like there's so many things, like things that we know to be true, like E equals MC squared. They were not proven that long ago. And in math, we have things that we thought were true that we proved that weren't true. Like it happens all the time, things that we thought like, oh, this is true for natural numbers. It's true for a certain set of numbers. But then like we find out, oh, like for this certain set, it does not hold true.
I think one interesting question, right, is you said the next step would have been to prove your own theorem. What kind of things are being researched when it comes to theorems? Like, again, it seems like such a foreign concept to me of how would one even plan out wanting to research a theorem? Like, right? Like it just is so foreign. Like, how are we building on math still? And how do you pick what you want to build on? Like, not even necessarily doing the theorem itself, but coming up with the idea for it.
I think, and I didn't end up pursuing this as my career, but from what I know and from my knowledge, a lot of it is curiosity. So a lot of common theorems that you guys might know, like Euclid's theorem. Okay, so you're wanting to prove, I imagine Euclid was just sitting around and was like, I wonder if there's infinitely many prime numbers. And he's like, I'm going to prove it. And then there's like practical applications for it, once you go to like figuring out certain formulas that can apply to the real world. So like Pythagorean theorem, that you can figure out certain things using a formula. But I imagine it's finding a need, finding either curiosity when it comes to certain theorems on like, well, how do we know this is true? Or I imagine trying to, solve a problem, so fulfill a need, which is similar to engineering too, but from a more analytical perspective.
I can see
Yeah,
how
I don't know.
again,
it might be a little bit above my pay grade.
For
I didn't end up doing anything with my math degree.
No, like it is linking together, right? Again, it's that like puzzle solving mindset, and it's so cool to me to think about the possibility of studying something like math questions and having the creativity to be like, well, I wonder how this works, and just doing it in math, right? And it's cool because you've got both sides of it. You've got the mathematical side of things, and then you've got like the hands-on, I'm just gonna build this thing that there's a need for in the world. Like, I think that's super, super incredible. I am like totally geeking out. I apologize. I can't help but be like,
oh no, thank you.
Like, as you're telling these stories, I'm just smiling at your ear. I'm like, that's so
I
cool.
mean, you actually have done it, I mean, maybe one day I will. Like, who knows? You never know if you're going to be a streamer forever.
Yeah.
But...
So, kind of, what was that next step like? So, you've gotten the both majors. Was the next step for you going into full-time streaming directly? Was it looking at the R&D field and being like, you know what, this isn't for me? What was that next step for you?
So I was not planning on being a streamer. I didn't even know what Twitch was. It was just poor timing. If it was not for the pandemic, which I'm sure a lot of streamers can say, if it wasn't for the pandemic, I would not be here. I would be, ideally, I was applying for an internship at Edwards Life Sciences, and I was going to intern there. And I was looking to work in cancer research specifically, and that was my path in life. That was what I was going to do. It was 2020. I finished up my math degree, and I only had probably like a quarter or two, so I'd say like half a year's left of classes for my biomed degree. And like quarantine happened, and unfortunately, well, at least at that time, I finished up and I was like, I don't want to go to school during quarantine. Because I noticed, because I graduated spring for my math degree. And so shutdown happened around March, late March. And so I had like a couple months of online schooling when I was finishing up my math degree. And something I noticed, and if anyone else happened to go to school around that time, you may have noticed this too, but everything switched to online classes and class averages jumped. So where I went to school, class averages usually were around a D, and then they would grade on a curve. And then that's what would happen. And that was how people would get their final grades. Class averages spiked to a B+ around in general before the curve, which was huge because a lot of people, I mean, I personally of the mind that a lot of people were cheating, being able, and I feel like maybe online education is a lot better now, but this was a huge shift where a lot of teachers that weren't used to teaching online were all of a sudden having to teach online and maybe didn't have, really good tools to prevent a lot of cheating and stuff like that. So anyway, I noticed that class averages jumped and it was making me look worse because I usually benefited from the curve. So if everyone was doing good, then I wouldn't be doing great anymore. My B wouldn't become an A anymore. And so naively, I didn't think quarantine was going to last that long. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to wait till the quarantine's done and then finish up my second degree. That's what I'm going to do, because I'm going to wait till it's back in school. I don't like learning online. I don't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy that. I felt like I wasn't learning as much, and there was no labs, obviously. So I just felt like it wasn't kind of worth it. And so I was like, I'm going to take a break. So that's what happened. Quarantine did last a long time. I'm in California. Obviously, it was probably different for the state, but it lasted a very long time. I lost my job. I was a server and bartender at a restaurant. So obviously all the restaurants shut down. Like everything was done. And that's when I started Twitch streaming just for fun, because I was, bored and alone. I had you couldn't see your friends. Like no one was talking to each other or being around each other or anything. So yeah, and that's when I started Twitch streaming. And then unfortunately I had a parent pass, and my other parent had some health issues. And so I ended up being a caretaker, or caregiver, I think is technically the term. Caregiver for 2 years for my mom. And during that time, it was one of those things where I was just like, I don't have time to go back to school and work. Because meanwhile, I have to work a full-time job. I have bills to pay. So I was like, I don't have time to go to school and work and take care of my mom. And so I just kept working my job, and I would stream part-time whenever I was able to. And I was like, yeah, I'll go back to school like once my mom is better and stuff. And then by then, streaming just kind of blew up, and that's kind of how I fell into it full time. But it was never part of the plan. Like I said, if it was not for the pandemic, I would not be here. I wouldn't have even, I wouldn't know what Twitch is or anything. I literally like stumbled upon Twitch. So it's very interesting how life works out.
What kind of content did you start originally streaming, and how has that streaming journey evolved as well?
I'm sorry, what was the first part?
So what kind of content did you originally start with? What was it that we were like, you know what, I'm going to make the connections, and how has that changed over the course of that streaming career?
So I would just do like games and Let's Plays. I always wanted to make it interesting, and I did, to connect it back to STEM. I very swiftly fell in love with OBS and a lot of the bots, streamer bots, and a lot of the coding aspect of it to do some really interesting things. In fact, I did bring a clip. I don't know if you want to play it on stream, or I could just post it in chat. So I did things like this, where I made a pulley system, which was, oh brother, it was a whole thing. And I coded it. I used a Raspberry Pi, and I coded it so that certain channel rewards would trigger a wheel to rotate. It was fishing wire or fishing line, and so the wheel would spin, and it would pull the fishing line, and then would pull the pulley, and these little like rubber little piggies would fall on my head, and rubber balls and stuff like that. And chat could activate it. The only problem, and why I stopped doing it, is because I would have to reset it every day, and so I'd have to get a ladder, because I'm very short and my ceiling's very tall. And so I'd have to get a ladder, and I'd have to reset it up, because I had like this hook that I put in. I like drilled it in this like hook to put the pulley system and stuff. And so I'd have to reset it every stream, and it was a lot of work. But yeah, so I did a lot of things like that, and I always kept a lot of, little bits and pieces of STEM and in everything. I do feel like a significant part of my success on Twitch was my STEM background, in the sense that it helped me look at things a little analytically, from a numbers perspective, discoverability perspective. Not so much now, but when I first started, numbers have never upset me as a streamer. Like they upset me, like, when you're like, I want better numbers and things, but they would motivate me more than they would upset me. I would always look at it and I'd be like, okay, why did this stream do well and why not this one? And I had like Excel spreadsheets and graphs and things of like all my streams and averages, and like, okay, so I learned this day is better than this day, and and why. And so I would try to make every stream an event, and do lots of like fun creative things with it. Yeah, so I do feel like it helped me a lot as far as being more analytically minded, especially with numbers, and as far as being able to be creative and competitive. When content creation is such a competitive field, as I'm sure you know, and it's a very saturated space. And so doing things creative like this pulley would help me stand out a lot more. I did something else where I coded a twister board. So I had a bunch of streamers and we played Twister, and chat would be able to automatically like spin the Twister board. Some other fun things I've coded? Yeah, just a bunch of little things like that.
Is there any
That was a great
likelihood
clip.
of?
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you liked it.
Can there be
I know I would do it again if I had like, I'm gonna hire some help to reset the pulley every night.
That's what I was going to ask. Is there any chance of the return of the pulley system? Like, what would it take to bring that back, if not just for the one-off special return?
Oh, I would probably bring it back if, I don't know. I'm not really, I don't really want to now because I'm lazy. I feel like I'm a lot lazier now. And now I'm like resting on my laurels. Now I just like to hang out and chill. I don't do as many like innovative things as when I was starting out and I was, a young upstart. Now I'm like, I'm just going to have fun and stuff. But I do, and now I just have less time as well. When you're starting out, like I didn't have like an established community, so I had a lot more time to invest in stuff like this. Whereas now the community managing aspect is a part of content creation that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about, in the sense that, you're organizing events, you're talking to people, you are maybe mediating certain conflicts that might have happened, or, helping moderators do things. So I feel like my time is a lot more spread thin than it was back when I had a lot of time to do this. But I definitely still love coding. I do like to make a lot of little things for other community members in StreamerBot and stuff. And what's nice about StreamerBot is you can just like export, boom, copy, and send it to someone, and then they can import it, and then they could just do it. So a lot of people that maybe like in the community that aren't as aren't used to StreamerBot as much, because it does have one ugly UI, let me tell you. They're able to, import something and have it work. And so I'll do little things like that for them, but probably nothing like the pulley in a while. I need to bring it back.
The Twister one sounds really cool too, because it's something where, like you said, it could synchronize multiple different streamers at different parts of the world, and you could all be playing Twister at the same time. Like it's obvious.
Technology is so crazy. Like,
yeah,
even just my time on Twitch, I've been on Twitch like 5 years, a little over 5 years, and there's like bots have improved so much, and there's so much. I'm like, you kids don't know how good you got it. Back when I started, we had Leorin board. Does anyone remember Leorin board? I don't know if you ever used that. It was horrible.
That's what we still use.
Oh no! Do you really?
It's Sammy board now, but yes, that's what we use.
Oh no! I hated Leorin board. Oops. Chat, how am I doing in this interview? Am I failing?
That's what we got.
I mean, Leorin board's great.
No.
Good stuff there.
No, we always have a friendly rivalry.
Have you heard
between
of any other bot ever?
SiriBot? No, actually, SiriBot's been very helpful.
Oh, SiriBot's great. No,
fighting off raids and everything.
No, I'm a very StreamerBot diehard fan. But whatever works, there's lots of options. There wasn't back then. It used to only be, I don't know how long you've been streaming, but back then it only used to be Leorin board and, some other pretty bad options. So. Yeah,
we started late 2021, and that's all that. Like, that was the only thing that, you could start building in, and there wasn't really an option, and it has come a very long way. And it's actually, like you said, it is fun to put in code and like change it around and make things happen on stream and there's like new interactivity with the chat, which keeps it very, very fun. And it seems like with at least a StreamerBot element to it, it keeps those math and engineering muscles going, right? Like you're still constantly puzzle solving.
And what I will give it was the only thing like that back then. Like there was no StreamerBot, there was no, Firebot, or like what else do people use? BikuBot wasn't a thing yet. Like Leorin board was the only one back then. So it was cool that was available. Like that was all we had.
I guess another question for you, Rare, is do you find any other day-to-day incorporation of that math? So one thing that we constantly hear, right, when people are talking about math is, I didn't actually need this for my field, or I didn't need this for my life, right? I took algebra. But could you give us like dynamic examples? And it could be just honestly critical thinking and how you think about the world of like the benefits that you've gotten from all your math training. Because that I feel like is going to be a big take-home message for folks.
Yes. And yeah, I hear that all the time. And yeah, arithmetic, you have calculators, so you're not going to need that as much and stuff. But, oh, sorry if you heard my cat. I don't know if you guys heard that. But I personally, and I want to be careful because I don't like I don't like, giving financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. But I was part of the finance club in college, and I like to use a lot of my skills that I learned in upper division level math as far as investing, and projections for the future for my personal investments. My chat will yell at me. They'll never. I invested in Boeing a long time ago before they were, whacking people off. Anyway, but besides that, my investments are good and my math checks out. Okay. But even besides critical thinking, there is a lot of as far as the statistics discipline, there is so much that you can apply to your personal life, personal budgeting, and personal like just financial plans for the future. As far as like upper division level math, like I just learned a lot of. I didn't get to explore. I just have a BS. I didn't get to do the master's degree level where we were probably taking it a step further. So as far as like proving a lot of the fundamentals in my applied mathematics, it was more things that we kind of already know to hold true and being able to prove that. So a lot of math is applied for things like springs, sounds, sound waves, things that we kind of already know to be true. So I wouldn't say that as much, or at least in that discipline of it. It would be more just the critical thinking and more of the like wondering why things are the way they are and how would I prove it to hold for all things. That's my streamer financial advisor. I'm not your financial advisor. But definitely as far as statistics and finance, I think math has benefited a lot, and I think could benefit a lot of people, because I think a lot of people, especially with finance, are scared. A lot of people are in the market of gambling right now. There's lots of prediction market trends and things like that. And I think there is, if you learn a little bit of math, if you learn like, what a future is, what shorting something is, and you kind of learn the math behind what that means, it could help you out. But definitely learn what things are before you just do things.
As you're talking about finances, I'm like, this lady knows it all. Like, I just want to like how you're talking about these things. Like, it's just absolutely mesmerizing. I can listen to you talk about just all these different things like for hours on end.
Tell me more about myself.
No, I mean, this is really cool stuff, and like the amount that you clearly know because of that background is just like, heck yeah! Like, keep telling me, please. Like, tell me this information. Now, one thing. Right, this is kind of the dark side that we've been asking our guests, right, is as a woman in STEAM, there is, depending on what field you're in, a lot of negativity because you are a woman going into this field. And that, unfortunately, is the reason why it's important to have these events where we're highlighting incredible women in STEAM, getting past a lot of these barriers. We've had some guests who are like, you know what? Our field, like archaeology, is actually primarily women, and so I didn't actually go through this, which is great to hear. It's like, all right, awesome. Someone's doing well. Could you comment a little bit on if there have been difficulties and how you overcame them, and what advice that you give to the next generation of women going into math and engineering?
Oh my goodness, that's so much to talk about with that question. Where do I begin? Yes, I felt like there were a lot of difficulties being a woman. I feel like there's a lot of difficulties in being a woman in any field. STEM is obviously traditionally a male-dominated field, so is streaming, With STEM, it was one of my struggles was being alone. There were never any women. There would be like one or two women in my class. And due to the nature of the school I went to, I'm guessing, but I don't remember the specific statistics, but my school had a lot of transfer students, like foreign students and stuff from other countries. And so a lot of times there was more like language barrier and stuff too, which was a bummer. But there was also just not a lot of women in general, and a lot of people, a lot of people in STEM would keep to themselves in general. You know, we're all like nerdy introverts and stuff. I mean, you know, I'm probably like not as introverted, but a lot of people keep to themselves. And so it would be hard. Like, I felt like I never had any women to connect with in that field. All my friends were more like either creative arts or liberal arts majors and things like that. And so I was never able to like talk to them about like things I learned in school today. You know, it sounds like talking to my mom. But yeah, so that was a little bit frustrating, was not being able to have as much like a group as much. And I definitely felt like UCI was not the traditional college experience. It was not a party school. It was not frats. It was very competitive and studious. And I felt like a lot of people in every class, you're competing against one another, you know, to get the curve and stuff. And so that was definitely a bummer. I felt like no one took me seriously. Sorry, my cats. I felt like no one took me seriously in the field, which was unfortunate. I experienced a little bit of sexism, I would say, just like open remarks and things, and underestimation of my skills. A lot of difficult professors. This didn't even really have anything to do with being a woman so much, but just one of the problems, this may be a side note actually, but one of the issues with university is a lot of professors there are there for research. They're not there because they like to be teachers. They're there because the school is funding their research, and then they just have to teach. It's like part of the contract, you know? So they're not there because they're like, wow, my passion in life is I really want to teach these kids math. I want to teach these college students math, and I want the, you know, a lot of them aren't teachers first. They want to do their own thing, and then they're just kind of like, it's secondary. And so I really struggled with having some professors that were egotistical is the way I would put it. I had one professor who, on her rubric from the beginning, and I had to take her class because it was like the only one that would fit with my schedule, but she would dock you letter grades for being late to class. And it wasn't like she would tell you. It wasn't like, oh, hey, by the way, you're late today. It was like 3 lates would be 1 letter grade. If you were absent ever without a doctor's note, that would immediately be a letter grade deducted from your grade for the quarter. And she wouldn't tell you, though. There was no like attendance sheet to sign. It wasn't like, okay, I'm taking the attendance for the entire class. It was just, she would privately mark if you were here or not, and if you're tardy or not. And then at the end of the quarter, you'd find out. And so at the end of the quarter, she was, showing everyone her grades. It was like a week before final postings or something. And I had an A in the class, and it was down to a D. And that was really frustrating. And I needed that class to pass, to get my degree on time. And I remember this was like such a defining moment for young me. It was the moment I realized HR is not there to protect you. HR is there to protect the company. Because I went to the ombudsman of the school with a lot of other students. It wasn't just me. I went to the ombudsman, and we all complained, and we all talked about it. We were just like, we had no idea, like, this is a completely subjective thing, like, but it's on the rubric, you know? And so they were like, you signed this rubric, it's on the rubric, like, she's allowed to do whatever she wants, basically. And I was able to like talk my way up to getting a C in the class. That way at least counted for my graduation. But yeah, I'll never forget. That was such a frustrating moment for me. Earning an A in the class, but because I was probably late a few times, you know, when I felt like I taught myself everything anyway. Anyway, to get more back on topic. Sorry.
It's just that is like an important note, right? Like it's one of those that is kind of under talked about, that some of these university professors, like you said, are not here to teach. They're there because they need space. They're essentially renting space, right, for the grants that they're getting to do their own research. And it's just like, you know what, I'm going to show if I have to be here, these kids got to be here. And the fact that you would get an A and you're late a few times, I don't feel like that is something that is reflective of getting any deduction. But, you know, that's just my take.
Yeah. I mean, and I remember being like, I wasn't even late, but it was a subjective thing. You know, the professor could have mixed me up for someone else. Who knows? And it was just still whatever. Anyway. But to get back on topic, we were talking about the dark side of STEM, being a woman in STEM, and this experience. Definitely like isolation, not being taken seriously. As I was applying for internships and stuff, it was something that I was noticing as well. I was a little concerned about, as far as people in jobs like paying me. I was like, am I going to get fair wages? Like, will I be taken seriously there? And it was a concern because a lot of it is not encouraged to ask about whether you're going to be not ask about comparable wages to your male counterparts, which is also like very frustrating. What are some other challenges along the way? Or what was your follow-up to the question?
Well, I mean, I think
much.
the biggest one is just like you said, not being able to be taken seriously. Like that, I feel like has implications on many different levels, like mental health, motivation, getting ahead, and like, right? That's crazy. As after what all that you've told us tonight, right, about your journey, I feel like the last thing anyone should say is to question your expertise. Honestly, right? I'm like, here's my financial documents, Rare. You can be my financial advisor, and by the way, please make just everything that I need in my life. Right? That's the level that I'm going on. But
exactly.
So it shouldn't matter, but there's, and unfortunately to some people it does. How did you get past this? And what advice would you give to the next generation of women scientists and women in STEM that are trying to go down this route? Because that almost seems like it's like a motivation killer. Like you wouldn't necessarily want to go in this field. I mean, you've gone through it, you've gone past it, and you beat it all up. But how did you do that, and what would you tell that next person?
That was your follow-up question. Okay. What would I tell the next generation of women? It's a difficult thing because when it comes to societal problems that are systemic, there's no one solution I can give. It can't just be like, oh, well, just if you wear yellow socks every day, no one's going to be sexist to you. Duh. Like, no misogyny on yellow sock day. Easy. Like, it's hard, and it is demotivating. For me, what has helped me always be motivated, and this actually probably started with STEM a lot, is like having the pride when I would make things and stuff, and I would be like, I can do it. And just knowing that I can do anything as long as I put the work in. I feel like a lot of people, when you're in, understandably, I'm not putting anyone down, but understandably, when you're in positions like that, where there is like systemic oppression, that is stopping you from reaching certain heights or making it 10 times harder for you, it can be very easy to have a defeatist attitude and give up and just think like, it's not fair. Like I'm having to work 10 times harder for this and stuff. But I think just taking a lot of pride in your accomplishments and what you're able to do, it can motivate you. Like, I think having an ego is a bit of a good thing. Like, I think it's good to have self-confidence. It's good to have pride in your accomplishments. It's good to, if you build something, I don't know, like my PVC pipe walker, they also folded into a chair, like, be like, wow, I did this and that's cool. How many people can say that they've done that? Or like when I talked about getting an A on the multivariable calculus test and no one else got an A in and stuff. Like I studied my ass off for that. And I'm sorry, I should watch my language. I studied my butt off for that. And it was something that I took a lot of pride in. And those things are what I turn to when I am lacking in motivation. Even in streaming now, learning this Halo run, there are a lot of people that said I would never, ever be able to do it, and that I can't learn to do this, and Elden Ring's a hard game, and blah, blah, blah. But I know that I can, and I think about all the other accomplishments I've done in streaming and STEM, and I just think about, like, if I put the work in, I can do anything. Like, it's going to take time, but I always do better and better, and every time I do anything, I learn from it. And I'm like, okay, what did I do here wrong? What do I need to learn from it? And then the next time it's better. And I take pride in that. Even if it's like a 1 level difference, if it's from here to here, I improved like this much. It's like, okay, I can like take a lot of pride in that. So that's probably for me. I didn't know about the yellow socks. Yeah, guys, it's the yellow socks.
I love that answer so much. And I feel like that folds really nicely into my final big question of the night for you. And this is something that we ask every one of our guests. We asked every one of our guests last year when we did this. So you, Rare, are an inspiration, right? Let's just recap this story here, right? You went and had a love of science, reading, journalism. You were able to pivot very early on in life and recognize, you know what, this isn't going to be the right field for X, Y, or Z reasons. Let me go to community college from there, get a full ride at one of the UCs, right? That's not easy. You went community college, full ride to UC, double majoring in both applied mathematics and biomedical engineering, coming up with all these creative solutions for both math and IRL practical applications, right? Then you're overcoming barriers into the streaming world as well, parlaying that into successful businesses. Turns out you're a financial advisor as well. You've achieved a lot, and you are someone to look up to. So what does it mean to you to not only be a woman in STEM, but to be an inspiration for potentially for the next generation of women in STEM?
Oh my goodness, what does it mean to me? Oh, wow. Well, when you put it like that, I feel all warm and fuzzy inside. No, it means a lot to me. I think about little me, and just like I had such big dreams, and I just think about like the type of people I would have wanted to have to look up to, because I didn't have that. I didn't have any friends that did STEM. There were not a lot of women in my classes ever. And I think of like creating a world where that's just more normalized, you know, and where there is a lot more people to, you know, look up to and relate to in that sense, and not feel like the isolation. Yeah, and just inspire people. To inspire people is crazy. I have never thought about it like that, but that means the world to me to hear that I could inspire anyone.
I can't imagine someone who can't listen to this interview and not want to go out and fight for that. Like, I want a world where my daughter can look up to someone like you. You know, she's got her wonderful mother who went through
She's
STEM
so
as well.
Cute.
But like, honestly, right? Like, you are an exemplary success of what you can do, and to see those role models of women in STEM, like with their STEM training, but also, like you said, which we didn't really touch on heavily, the male-dominated field of streaming, where I'm sure you get comments of like, oh, you can't do this game because of X, Y, and Z, and yet you're doing a hitless run, right?
Yes, I mean, and it's not just in streaming, but it's in every field. As a woman, as a woman, a lot of times it's hard. This kind of ties back to our previous question as far as motivation and drive, when you can feel like people see you one specific way. And this has been not just in STEM. You know, I've worked lots of jobs. I have lots of stories and experiences. I could keep you here all day, but it would probably make you pretty depressed. I've had managers that were very interested in me in a romantic way, and then the moment I turned them down, my job life became significantly worse. I've had that happen, and I've been able to commiserate with other women in the workplace about it. They're like, "Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that happened. That's what Drew does. That's what happens." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. Okay, that's just it." Streaming, you know, and any job, a lot of times as a woman, you could just be objectified, and a lot of people just on the internet, especially, people don't talk to people like how they would talk to them IRL. I'm like, you would not go up to a woman IRL and be saying these things. But people just like pride themselves in saying some of the most like foul things. And I feel like I have to be their friggin' parent or their Nanny McPhee or something. I have to be like, no, you can't say that. you can't even. There's a lot of education I have to do on how to talk to women on this website. But even when I was in when STEM and I was interviewing for internships and stuff, there was a lot of just, well, am I being picked because they think I'm a cute girl? And a lot of that can undercut my sense of accomplishment. Not even a sense of accomplishment, but a lot of my relationships, usually with men in particular, but it's not exclusive. It can be concerning if people are only see me as one way, or maybe they want to be friendly to me one way because I'm a woman. And then if it doesn't go their way, it can turn very negative to me. And I know it sounds, me describing it, and this is kind of what it's like being part of a marginalized group. Because a lot of times, if you're not part of a certain marginalized group, you can hear things like this and you're like, wow, you're paranoid. What are you talking about? People aren't going to do that, But it's one of those things that when you're part of the marginalized group, other women know my struggle. And other women, I guarantee, if there's a women in this chat, every woman in this chat has probably had an experience or two, or several. I have had one in every single, whether it was streaming, I've worked in several restaurants, and every single place I've ever worked, there have been issues like that in the workplace. Going to school, there was issues like that as well. And it can be very demoralizing, and it can make you feel, it can undercut your sense of accomplishment. It can make you feel objectified, and like a lot of intellectually what you're contributing, or a lot of what you're contributing that's, just part of who you are and not part of your, your biological sex is just like a worthless a lot of times. But for me, I just try to I get pride from myself and my things I do, because I'm not going to get it from other people. And I'm not saying how it should be. That's because that's not how it should be. And I know it might be different for other people, but I always try to be the fire that fuels me. And I think of the things that I'm proud of. And I think of the things, I was really close with my dad. My dad passed 4 years ago, but me and my dad were really close. So when you talk about your daughter and seeing you with her, it makes me so emotional, because my dad was always super supportive of me being an academic, and he wanted me to be a doctor and a lawyer and all this stuff. And he was very much like, I remember I would be in spelling bees and my dad would stay up late studying words with me. And he always thought it was my dad never graduated high school. He was not very well educated. And so he would be so impressed. I remember I would correct him. I'd be like, Dad, you don't spell heart, H-A-R-T. What are you, Dom? I wouldn't say that, but he would be like, whoa, you know how to spell heart? That's so crazy. And I'd be like, yeah. And that he would be super psyched every time I would do, I do a lot of school accomplishments. Every time I would get, I don't know, not just perfect attendance, but if I got an award for I don't, spelling bees or some academic accomplishments, scholarships and stuff, he'd be like, whoa, that's incredible. Whoa. It was like a superhero to him, because it was so, he never had a higher level education and stuff. And so it was very foreign to him. And it was just he thought I was the smartest person in the world. And so that I got a lot of sense of pride from that. And that kind of motivated me as a kid, and into my adulthood to be like, whoa, my dad thinks I'm cool. And then I would think I was cool, because it kind of was ingrained in me oh, this stuff is really cool. This is really impressive. It would, I'd take a lot of pride in it. And it started with probably with my relationship with my dad, so I think it's really beautiful that you want to do that with your daughter. And, it warms my heart.
And thank you for saying that. It just, again, it's one of those things where if I would love for her to view you, she's got obviously Lita as a role model, but having more role models, right? You again in the mathematical field, in the engineering field, in the streaming field, it's a success story to celebrate. And like you said, hopefully, when you were mentioning that, I'm sure the women in the chat are nodding their heads along, and I'm like, oh God, Lita's told me about this stuff too. I'm sure everyone's unfortunately nodding their heads along. And it would be wonderful to have a day where these concepts are foreign, right? And we're not close, unfortunately, but I hope that you sharing these stories with us, the success and then this darker side too, can just open people's eyes and further make a difference. Because again, your success is extremely impressive, independent of any other factor, right? And then just to hear these stories of all the extra that you had to fight through, again, like you mentioned, just asking about the job disparity between you and another, that shouldn't be anything you'd have to ever ask about.
No.
And so
or wonder about.
Yeah, no. And so
and
it's
then
one of
find
the
out the hard way, which
yeah.
has happened to me, and I'm sure several other women can relate too.
And no, it
You
shouldn't be
find out the
anything.
hard way.
It shouldn't be something that you have to find out about. It shouldn't have to be any of those things, right? And it's like us talking about it will hopefully make that difference. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on and sharing not just your story, but also these takes, because not everyone's comfortable sharing these kinds of takes, and I think they're an important conversation to have.
Thank you. And I think it is, to not end on a super cynical note, I think it is getting better in a lot of ways. Like, I don't think it's something that is going to ever be eliminated. Like, it's systemic change really takes a lot of time and needs to be worked from the ground up. But I think being able to talk about things, I'm a huge proponent of being able to talk about things, even if they're hard things a lot of time. And it helps normalize, and having these conversations and seeing more and more women in these spaces. I was just talking about how Twitch is one of the only places that has a female-led majority on its executive board as of this year. That's super rare in the tech field, and it's things like this are just happening right now. Things that are like revolutionary, never happened before, or hardly have ever happened before. They're beginning to happen more and more, and I think I do feel optimistic about it. So I think it's heading in the right direction. That way we're not all doom and gloom.
You know what was not at all doom and gloom is if everyone goes and follows RareGangster right now from the Twitch chat as well as all her socials. We're going to be putting in the show notes, the link tree, the Twitch page, the YouTube, all the things are right there for everyone to go hit that heart button, like and subscribe on RareGangster. Go chat her up and ask her about to bring back that pulley system, maybe, possibly, potentially, or maybe custom codes. Ma'am, thank you so much again for your time and sharing your story with us. Please, please, please let us know about things that you have upcoming, things that you're excited about. Please promote everything and anything.
My birthday's next week, so I'm just going to be doing a birthday stream. I'm going to be giving away money and eating pizza and playing Pokemon. I saw you were playing Pokopia. It looks so much fun. It looks amazing. So that's it. That'll be on Wednesday. I'll be doing a long 12-hour stream. But yeah, no, I really appreciate you asking me to be here. There were a lot of things that I wish I came more prepared. You asked a lot of tough questions. But it was really fun to be able to talk about an aspect of myself that I don't usually do on my Twitch channel. We usually are very, very silly, lots of dark humor, 18 plus space, just a heads up. I don't want anyone being shocked or surprised. But yeah, no, it was really cool to be able to talk about this because it is a part of me. And it is a part of what made me who I am. It's probably, God forbid there's ever a day where I'm not a Twitch streamer, but I feel like Twitch streaming is obviously not as much of a stable career. I think that's no secret. And, that'll definitely, if and when this ever ends, I will be going back to STEM, and that's what I will be doing. So then hopefully I'll have more stories to tell you about some of my research and stuff.
Well, I hope none of those questions, they were never intended as gotcha questions. They're just one where, naturally coming from the conversation, I was just, because honestly, I was just at every moment blown away. I'm like, that's so cool. That's so cool. That's so cool. And it was just.
Oh, no, they were amazing. I wanted to know some of your answers to some of them, too. Like where you get your own motivation and stuff. But I don't want to keep you. I know you've been streaming like 9 hours already.
Oh, no. Well, we have another. I don't want to keep you, ma'am. You're the one. It's your time that you've given us. You also generously rated over with your community. Like, we don't want to keep you too long, and we want to make sure that we're respectful of your time, but we can always do a part two. We can always do a part two.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me so much.
No,
and should we promo the charity too? If anyone wants to donate?
If you don't mind. We are raising money this month for Girls Who Code. There is the Tiltify link. We've got $1,000 as a goal. We are actually a little bit past the halfway mark now. We're at 505. And this is the same, or no, 520, it's the same charity we raised money for last year. It's an opportunity to provide after-school programs for women in the technology field in particular, because like Rare mentioned, severely underrepresented, although this year now, female-led majority for Twitch, like that's a big win.
Board, yeah, it's crazy.
So
first time ever.
Yeah, and any of these, right? Like there's nothing comparable to it yet. So hoping that we can make it, again, the norm, nothing weird or out of the ordinary, and keeping women in the sciences with the fundraising. Yeah, thank you for letting us while you've been on too. It's crazy.
Oh yeah. We've been both doing marathon streams today. Look at us.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta it's those muscles. You gotta keep going, right? When you're full time, you gotta keep chasing that dream and keep making it full time.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for having me.
When is your birthday stream next week? When is it starting? And happy early birthday from our community.
Oh, thank you. On Wednesday. Mm-hmm.
Time TBD.
When I wake up.
All right, guys, you got to join the Discord and follow all the socials and have notifications on the Twitch page so that you can know when the birthday stream starts. And presumably we'll be raiding over there anyway, then, and further celebrating your birthday.
Aw, that's so sweet. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much,
I'll probably be sticking
Rare.
around in the chat so I can ask you some of the, I want to ask you some of the questions that you asked me.
Man, thank you again for your time, your expertise, and just being an all-around inspiration.
Of course. Thank you. And thank you everyone for having me in the chat as well.
All right. Rare, have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. You too.
Science is for everyone, all backgrounds, all ages, all genders, and all walks of life deserve an education. Come be one of us.